You can see my screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's start it then. So in the last class, we spoke about AZ-900 and we concluded that, okay, this is the way that we install the IES. And we also understood the basic functionalities of NSG and the firewall, right? Now, from today onwards, we will be focus on AZ-104. And
Okay.
starting from this, we will be starting from the Azure Virtual Machine. Okay.
Okay.
Now, in this virtual machine and in forthcoming series, actually, I've been, you know, d- explaining it in earlier also that we have to start with a network, but for ease of administration or ease of understanding, I'm starting with the virtual machine. Okay, because when we start the network components, so there are multiple things that we have to understand simultaneously. The first thing
Okay.
is your IP, subnet, VNet, then load balancer, uh, then your VPN connectivity, and so on. So sometimes it becomes so cumbersome. Okay, so to start with, we are proceeding with virtual machine, and in this way, we will be focusing to create the virtual machine in all the possible ways. Okay, starting
Okay.
off this course when we spoke about what all the various ways to create the virtual machine. Okay, so
Correct.
we spoke about how do we create the virtual machine in Azure environment. So if suppose I wanted to create some sort of virtual machine in Azure, so what all the options I have it. So I have something called, we spoke about Azure portal. Through the portal we should be able to create. Then we also have something called PowerShell. We also have something called CLI, then the template. So these are the various ways to create the virtual machine. Okay.
Okay.
Now we have already understood the portal way, and
Okay.
we also install something called web server using this,
Correct. Correct.
right? So today we will be exploring how do we deploy the virtual machine using the PowerShell. Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
in this way, first of all, we will be just understanding the basic commandlet for the PowerShell, and we will also know that how do we connect Azure environment with our local PowerShell interface. Okay, so
Okay.
if we talk, and this is my portal, and under this, if I open this part, this is a cloud shell. Okay, this is also a cloud shell. So here I should be able to create, or I should be able to trigger any sort of commandlet from this, and it will again connect to my Azure environment. Okay, this is the
Okay.
same way to connect using the portal, using the console. Okay,
Okay.
so again, as we spoke and understood, there are two ways to connect your Azure environment. One is through portal, where we should be able to connect either through the bash programming or the bash scripting, or the another way of connecting is using the PowerShell. Okay, so if you see that here, we have something called bash, and at the same time we have the PowerShell. So we can always toggle between bash or PowerShell. If I just toggle from the bash to the PowerShell, so this is the way to toggle. Okay,
Okay.
so yes, this is the one way to connect PowerShell interface from your portal. Okay, but this interface, what you can see right now, it is there in the portal. What if we wanted to connect from our local PC? Okay, so that is also possible. What we have to do it, we have to connect to our PowerShell interface. Okay, let me connect to another interface. 1 minute, which is portal.azure.com, and I need to toggle to this directory. Okay, let me ask my friend to allow it. Okay. So here I have some virtual machine, and this is what we were just exploring in the another interface. I'll be toggling between two different interface because sometime I do not have access on my Azure AD, but on the virtual machine on this interface I do have full access. Okay, so do not get confused. I'll be keep clarifying all this whenever I switch to one account or one subscription to another subscription. Okay, so here now this is what we explored there, PowerShell and Bash. Now if I wanted to connect to my local PC from the local PC, okay, suppose you have the Windows 10, 11, okay, so you do not have to do anything. PowerShell comes with a default scripting language. So right now my laptop is also having Windows 11. So if I go and search, there are two things. If I search here under my power under the local PC and search here PowerShell, you can see this is my PowerShell ISC. And there is one more thing where we talk about PowerShell, and it would be this one. So Windows PowerShell, this is the window, this is the PowerShell. So first thing first, we have to ensure that okay, uh, the the PowerShell version which we are using is compatible enough to connect to the Azure environment. Okay, how do we check that? We have to come here and type this command, something called $ps version table. Okay, if you give this command on your PowerShell, so you should be able to open something called PS version. So this is the PowerShell version, which is 5.1 point whatever it is. Okay. So to connect to our Azure environment, we need to have at least 5.0 PowerShell version. Okay. Of course, on the older version also we should be able to connect, but it is recommended to have at least 5.0 PowerShell version. Got it? Now, what next we have to do it? So since it is my system, it is my office laptop, I'm not able to log in with my admin credentials. But if you're doing this exercise on your local PC, on your personal PC, make sure that you connect to this PowerShell using administrator. Okay. So
Yes,
what
sir.
you have to run as admin and then launch the PowerShell. So the moment you launch the PowerShell, here you should be able to see one more, the window will appear like administrator and Windows PowerShell. This is the way to start. Okay, so once you start it, what you have to do here, a very first time, because whenever you're trying to connect to your ISC or PowerShell, okay, and this is the ISC. When I type here ISC, I'll be opening the PowerShell ISC. It means this is my interface. This is the scripting interface for the PowerShell. If anything on the upper area, you can see this is my scripting area and this is the execution area. I can type anything here and execute, and the result will display in the blue screen here. Okay, so we have to ensure that we are able to open this ISC with the admin privileges. Once you open this ISC, what all you have to do? First thing first, by default, your Windows or your machine, Windows or server, whatever it is, you know, it comes with the local security restrictions. So unless you go and modify that, you will not be able to install necessary modules for Azure. Okay, so first of all, you need to find out whether I have any sort of restrictions. If any, then you need to change this restrictions mode, and then only you should be able to execute the command. And in this PowerShell, we say commandlet. Okay, so how do I check? So in order to check it, what I have to do, you have to type here in the ISC get execution Windows get execution policy. Okay, this is the command, or this is the commandlet which you need to execute on the PowerShell ISC. When you run this command here, it says unrestricted. But for you, because I've already made this restricted, I mean, from restricted to unrestricted, and that is the reason you can see here unrestricted. But there is a high chance that at your end that when you run or when you try to run it, you will be seeing instead of unrestricted, you will be seeing something called restricted. Okay. So how do you change this? Get is something to check the policy. And then you have to run something called set execution policy and the execution policy, and here unrestricted. Okay. This is the command, or this is the commandlet that you need to run on the PowerShell ISC in order to change the configuration. Okay. This is the way to change the configuration from restricted to unrestricted. And again, you
Okay.
can run this command. This is the command to verify the first one. And the result or outcome, you should be able to see unrestricted. So if you see that unrestricted, it means all good to go. You're all set. Okay. Now what next? After checking this, these are the prerequisites that you need to look into. You need to ensure that you follow the same. Once you're all set, your PowerShell is open to accept the new module. Now what you need to do, install module, and here we will be saying AZ. That's it. AZ, it is a command which will, now what happens once you connect this? It will connect to the PowerShell gallery of Microsoft, and any sort of Azure related module will installed here on your local PC. Of course, you need to have the internet connectivity at one place. So once you connected, then all this module will install automatically on your local PC. One more thing, you know what you can do it. This is something. There come some prerequisites again, but Windows 10 and 11 comes with 4.8 .NET version or 4.6 .NET version. So that is not needed. But sometime in the older version, you might need to install the latest .NET version, which is 4.8. Okay. So once you've done this, then you're all set to connect to your Azure environment. All right. This is the
Okay.
command that you need to install, or this is the module rather, not the command you need to install on your local PC. Once it is done, then you should be able to connect. So this is to installed Azure module on your local PC. Now, after installing that, we will be giving a command called connect Azure connect AZ account. Okay, this is the command. Now, if I click on this and hit on this button, okay, these are the two buttons which we will be frequently using it. This one and this one. Now, what is the difference between these two? This is F5 command, sorry, F8 command, which which means if you keep the cursor here and hit on this, so only this part will execute, and it will execute and give the result down there. But at the same time, if you have some script on this scripting area, this is the scripting area on this, when you hit this one, it will execute all script in one go. Okay, so these
Okay.
are the two things that we have to understand. Now if I just click here, click the you know mouse or cursor here and hit on this button, so it will prompt me to supply the credentials. Okay, so I need to supply the credentials in this way. Let me send notification. So the moment I send this notification and my brother accept this, we should be able to see, and we should be able to connect to the Azure environment. It's just away from phone. Let me call him one moment. It's not picking up my phone. Let me try to connect with my account in this case. Okay, so let me just clean it. Okay, let me try with my account. So I'll get a notification here, and I got this and I approve it. So if you see that I've just approved it and I'm able to connect. The only thing is I need to connect from here to here. Okay, so I've connected to my Azure environment. If I just wanted to double check, I can come here and see my subscription name here, tenant ID and environment. Okay, and the account is associated with this email address. If I verify here, this is my directory. Okay, and this is the tenant ID. Now, if I wanted to know, okay, so I connected to Azure environment. Now, if I wanted to know how many resource group we have it, here we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 resource group. Okay, so if I wanted to know and run this command here, To get the resource group name, we'll have to give something called get AZ resource group. Okay, and if I just click on, I should be able to see the same resource group name what is here in this GUI mode. Okay, if I count, and so it is 8 resource group. Okay, so these 8 groups are already here, which we can see on the GUI mode. Now similarly, if I wanted to create any new resource group, okay, so for that I have to click on new AZ resource group, and then name, I'll say, for instance, I'll say AZ-104 demo -02, and then location, I'll say East US 2. If I execute this command here, so instantly it will create a new resource group named AZ-102-demo-02, and the location would be East US 2. So if I come here and refresh it one more time, I'll probably refresh this entire page. Usually it takes some time. Yep. Now you can see AZ-104 demo-02, the one which we recently created. Okay. So now you must be wondering that, okay, by knowing all this, do we need to memorize all this command? No, that is not the case here. Okay, we have a plenty of command pertaining to Azure, but we cannot memorize each and every commandlet, right? So the best way is to utilize or to learn Azure PowerShell is to utilize the help command. Okay, now how do you utilize the help command? Okay, so if I say, but you need to know at least one keyword. Okay, so I'll just write it down here: to connect to Azure environment. So let's remove this part, line number 7, and say you want to create or you want to know all the commands pertaining to resource group. And what is the resource group? What we discussed last time. What is the resource group? Why do we use the resource group, guys?
So we require to means just we have to centralize this thing.
Yeah, centralize is one part, but in other word, we also have something called container. We wanted to
Okay, yeah,
create
sorry,
everything under one container.
container, correct. Sir.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So now assume that you want to know all the commandlet pertaining to resource group. So how do you find the command? So when we talk about PowerShell, PowerShell work verb plus noun concept. Okay. For instance, get, set, remove. So it's a verb plus noun. Okay. So if I say here that, okay, I want to know, first of all, get command. And I want to know all the command related to resource group. Okay. So if I just type here and press this one, so this is a command AZ resource. Or to make it more simplifier, what we can do, we can just type here and say that, okay, help, and I need the command related to AZ resource group. So I can type resource group, okay, and execute here. So now if the moment I type get help or help asterisk resource group, you can see all sort of commandlet are here in front of me. Okay, all sort of command which has get AZ resource group, new AZ resource group, remove AZ resource group, and set AZ resource group. This is synopsis, module, and category. Now, again, if you wanted to know something more about remove AZ resource group, okay, if you want to know how actually this syntax for the remove AZ resource group work and what is the importance of running this command, am I running correctly or am I doing something wrong, or the syntax which I'm using, is it really work, or what is the correct way of running this command. So what you will be doing it, you can take this command, copy as it is, okay, and run it here and help, and then type here examples. Okay, and now if you press this one, so you will get all sort of example right here. Okay, first of all, what this command will do, this is the command, it will help remove a resource group, it will remove the resource group. And how do you execute this command let, using this, okay, example 2, example 3, and so on. So this will give you one example with all details. Moreover, sometimes it's possible that this command which you're running right now, it is not available on your local PC and you wanted to connect to online. So if suppose couple of command, probably your help is not up to date. Okay, because whatever you are seeing right now, the result is from your help file. There's a high possibility your help is not up to date, and that is the reason couple of commands which you can see are not there, or sometime when you need something, there's high chances that this command is not synced with the online because it is there in your local repository on your local PC. So what you can do to get directly a help file or help command from Microsoft, you can type here online. And the moment you type here online, it will connect to Microsoft Help. Okay. And this is the latest Microsoft Help. And here you will be getting complete insight about this particular command. What is the description? Example, example 2, example 3, parameters. If you want to run as a job, what is this parameter? This is a detailed help for your resource group. Okay. Here also you can run something called help resource and you can type details. When you go for detail, so certain parameters are there to run this resource group. Okay. It will give you complete details for this particular command where these are the details. See here, when you run only this part help and when you run detail, so it is saying that okay, you can run this commandlet using this syntax also, using the another syntax also, and so on. Okay, parameter you can run here as it is, an example also they have given, this is what you can use this. Okay, so these are the couple of things that you always have to explore it. Making sense, guys? PowerShell
Yes.
itself is very deep and very wide. So I take the PowerShell classes separately. It is just, kind of overview I'm giving here so that at least we should be able to connect to our Azure environment without memorizing the command. Okay. Now understand, suppose now I want to use this command in our lab. Okay. So what I'll do, I'll type here remove AZ resource group. Okay. Now, why we are using this ISC? Because the moment I type here, automatically, intelligent will work in the backend and it will give me the relevant command. For instance, if I wanted to know, since I've already connected to my Azure environment now, if I say, that remove AZ resource group, and then I'll say the name or simply name. Okay, so what actually it does, it will remove the resource group name. Okay, so you'll have to specify the resource group name. So here, if suppose I wanted to delete this resource group name, okay, or say the one which I created, okay, I've created another one, okay. So say if I wanted to remove this one, okay, but again, if you're not sure what will happen to this command, so what you can do, you can run something called what if parameter. The what if parameter will help you to give you the outcome of this command instantly. What will happen if you run this command? Okay, it will not execute, but it will let you know that what will actually happen when you're going to run this command. So if I just click here on the row number 8 and execute, so it is saying that performing this operation will remove this group, Azure resource group, and true means it will delete it. But in actual, it is not deleting anything. It is kind of, giving you consequences of running this command. Making sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we will be using this one, right? And now these are the kind of, basic thing which you should be knowing it before we go actually and start running our PowerShell command to run the or to deploy the PowerShell, to deploy the virtual machine using the PowerShell. Okay. Now, what sometime it happens like your help file, the help file which you're using right now, it is not up to date. So what you have to do, you have to type here update help, and you can use force. This will ensure that your help file is up to date and it's forcefully updating from your Microsoft website.
So there is one question is how can identify the help is not up to date? Is there any
It
way?
will give you a certain, say if you try to, since it is already up to date, my environment, say if you give this command, sometime you will not get the result which you are looking for. Okay,
Okay,
the detailed
okay,
information you are not getting it here. So
okay,
at the same time, if suppose, how do you validate? If you give this command here and at the same time you can give it in Google and see the difference.
okay,
And if you find there is a discrepancy here, so always go and update your help file, which is,
okay,
if it is by default is part of your regular update. So as part of regular update, your local PC will also get update on this. But sometime on a server end, when we talk about the server end, we have some internet restrictions where the server will not directly connect to the Azure or to the internet. So in that case, we might have to open the internet for the time being or use the proxy address and update all this. That is why we have to always double check.
okay, okay. Yes.
Okay, so this is the way just to make you aware about how this PowerShell work and what all the parameters we usually use. It's a big topic again, I'm saying, but it is just to give you some sort of insight so that we can start developing our interest towards the PowerShell. Okay. So now let's try to understand what all the parameters that we have to consider while deploying the virtual machine. Okay. So I have one more script here. I'll share this script with you guys. Which is here. 1 minute, I think. It's here. Hmm. Okay, so this is the way that here we will be just changing the parameter the way we wanted to have it for our environment. Okay, for instance, connect AZ account because we already connected, we will not make any changes again. But if you already connected and you wanted to disconnect again, you wanted to connect, then we will be using this one. Then we will be creating a new resource group. Okay, here we will be using something called, here we can change AZ-104 VM AZ-104 VM lab. Okay, location we can keep east to west or east to west 2, it's up to you. And this is the credentials, okay, where the password will temporarily stored in this variable. And then we will be using this resource group here. Okay, so let's understand. Our very first things what we are going to execute the third one. So the moment I click here, so my resource group has been created called AZVM-lab. So if I go here under this, wait for some time, there is a kind of lag between GUI mode and here in PowerShell, but eventually it will come up. So here it is AZVM-lab. Okay. So now if I connect to, this is the CRAD, means your local ID, local credentials for your VM. So if I execute this command here, you can see, okay. And then, so what happens when I run this fourth row, credentials, whatever I've given, it's stored in this variable, which is $CRAD. Now, this is a kind of table that we will be using it, and here we will be using the same resource group what we have created in row number 3. And here execute. Now what happens is all of this execution, all of this data is stored in this variable, which is VM param. It is again your variable. Now we will be passing all this information under this new AZVM is a command where we will be creating the virtual machine. Okay. So with this, we will be passing all these parameters. So if I just click here and give this, so now what is happening? My VM is getting ready. Okay. So here you can see my network security group 2016. It is 2016 data center image, which we have chosen as part of this deployment. Of course, you can go and change it basis on the image which you're trying to deploy. You can change it to 2019, 2020, 22, and so on and so forth. Once it is done, the VM will be generated in the backend, and then we will be able to see the configuration of the VM right here. Sadab, are you getting it? Any questions so far?
No, sir. So just we required to execute the same command on
Yeah,
the
I'll just upload it. You have
yeah
to just practice little bit, nothing.
yeah once the 2 or 3 VM will created na, that will be the clear all the things.
Great. Yeah. So once I done it, now what else I can? This is the verification to check. So if I give this command, so the username, computer name, and again if I wanted to verify, I can verify with this. Okay, this is the private IP address. Now if I go to the portal, refresh this here again, virtual machine. So here say this virtual machine which we deploy under East US and it is ready. So if I click here, try to connect. Since it is there in the East US and we are sitting at Central India, there would be going to be some lag. Okay, but the credential which I given, I should be able to log in with the same credentials here as well. Okay, so I'm able to log in here, and since we deploy the image 2016, we should be able to see the same.
Yes, sir.
As I told you, it is deploying the East to West, and we are connecting from India. So there would be some significant delay, but eventually it will be open. Now, unless it is open, we can do one more exercise here. That day, when we deploy the Windows server, okay, we deploy something called web server also, right? So do you know what is the command that we have used it? Any command or anything? On
Um,
this server, we use something called your web server role to install the web
so
server role.
IIS
Yes,
feature, sir.
IS feature, correct. Now, what we did as part of first exercise, we went to this virtual machine and installed the IIS part. Now, the same kind of things we can do it from remotely. It means we do not have to log into the virtual machine. Okay, how?
Okay.
Let's do it. So I'm logged in here, but I'll not do any sort of operations from the virtual machine. I mean, inside the virtual machine, I'll not execute any command. Rather, I'll come here and I'll go to run command under this operations and click on PowerShell script. Okay. Now, what is the PowerShell script I have to give? This is the script installed Windows features. It is client machine here. Okay, this is the command. So I'll just copy as it is and paste it over here and hit on run. When I run this command, I'm running where? I'm running on portal. Okay, I'm running this command on the portal, and inside that there's nothing. Okay, so let's wait for some time. Let this script run, and then we should be able to see whether IAS got installed on the server or not. Okay,
Okay.
this is still taking time. We'll wait for some more time and let this command run it. In the meantime, we will be doing some other practical. Okay, what is that? If we go to my computer, okay, and under this, click on my PC, you have a C drive and D drive. If you see the C drive, it is a OSDs. Usually, the size of C drive is close to 126 gigabytes or sometime 127 gigabytes. The temporary storage for this virtual machine is this much. Now, but temporary storage is not meant for storing anything here. Okay, the moment you click here and open this, you will see this data loss warning message. So which clearly state that any data stored in drive is subject to loss and there is no way to recover it. So you should always abstain to store any things here under D drive. Okay. Now the question comes, if we don't store here in the temp drive, what is the way forward for us as admin? How do we store the data? So in order to perform the same, what you can do, we can come here and virtual machine, same. Now under the disk, we can add one more disk here. So this is my OS disk, okay, and here it's going to be my data disk. So if I wanted to add one more data disk, what I need to do, you can create here. Here you can give the data name, data disk, and here the type, you can choose any type, SSD, premium SSD or SSD. A size is 10 gigabytes here, and all of other things will remain intact. Okay, save it.
So, one more question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, please.
So, when we have to creating the virtual machine through power cells,
Mm-hmm.
so is there any option to choose the storage type? Because when we have to do this the same in Protal, there is a option to choose the storage type. But you have to create the one virtual machine, but there is no option to choose the storage type. Sir.
No, that I have actually not added. Yes, we can
Okay, okay,
always go and change it, the storage type here. By default, it is going and selecting the SSD only. So
okay, okay.
we have to add the parameter here.
Means,
What kind of
means
storage we
yeah,
are needing. Yeah.
okay. Means it is a option is available, na sir?
Yeah, it is very much
Okay,
available. So if you
okay,
just give this command here, new AZ VM, and so here's the command, okay? It gives
right,
you the complete information about this. Create a virtual machine. Now here we have this, see, these are the
okay,
parameter, resource group, location, and then network interface, virtual network, address prefix, and here size, image, open port, then here the size in GB, enable SSD, see here it is storage, and a default profile. So all of these informations are there. It means these parameters are available. Say
okay,
data disk. So here from here you can choose anything.
okay,
This is the example to create.
okay, okay. Understood.
Got it? Right.
Got it.
Yeah. So now what we have done it, we have saved the data disk. Okay. This is still running. Let it run. But here we have saved this data disk and it is just updating the virtual machine. So see, IS has come now. It means IS is almost installed on the server, the one which we are trying to do from the other practical. Okay, so it is done. So here also we got success message. It means from remotely also we should be able to install it. Now if I open this page here, refresh once and type localhost, which is not installed, seems Microsoft Edge. Okay, so let's open this. And before that, we have to go to the server manager and change this configuration settings for IE and have to disable the security enhancement off. And close and type your localhost. So see, IS got installed here. Okay,
Correct. Yes, yes,
so
correct.
we did it using this remote PowerShell command. We didn't do anything on the server. Okay, so that conclude one of the practical. Another practical is what we did now. We can see a two hard disks, but if suppose we wanted to add data disk here, for that what we did on the portal itself, we added 10 gigabytes disk, right? Which we want to store something in it. But if I see in my computer or this PC, even I refresh it also, I am not able to see that partition. Any insight here? How do we attach here?
So you need to go to disk management and enable the partitions.
Right, yes, absolutely. So we have to go to the server manager or the disk manager under the file, the storage, file and store service, under disk. We have to enable that one, which is this one. So it is online, but it's not, does not have any partitions. Okay, what we can do, we can double click here,
And
click
click the
on new
partition.
volume, click next here and make it, and we can assign any sort of drive later. If it is needed F drive, S drive, J drive, O drive, P drive, anything else. Okay. So if I just click here on the F drive and click on next, and here again we can define the volume label, right? Volume label could be, you can specify whether it is H drive, H data, H, HR data, or anything else. Hit on create. So it is just updating all of these parameters, and once it is done, we should be able to see 10 gigabytes data has been attached under my PC. Okay, so this drive is a kind of persistent drive. What does it mean, persistence? It means no matter how many times this virtual machine restart, recover, my data is going to be forever under this F drive. Okay, but that is not the case if it is a D drive or the C drive. There's high chances that there is a problem with the OS, then my data will also go for the toss. Okay, or you will lose the data. But if it is a persistence volume, the one which we created, data will be there forever. So this is also a part of operations what we as admin perform on the virtual machines. Okay,
Okay.
is it clear, guys?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. So what we did two practicals. One is attaching the database Another one
And
is running PowerShell command using using the remote. And
correct.
now what we are going to do, we will be going to explore some more, settings for the virtual machines. For instance, if you come here under the help, you will see a set of command, performance diagnostic, VM inspector. So we are going to understand these things one by one. Okay. First thing first is your resource health. It means what? What is the health of your virtual machine? If there is any problem with your virtual machine, we should be able to see here. And who initiated? If there's any issue with this, we can download as a PDF file. We can download and see and keep it under for reference. Okay. Then we also have something called boot diagnostic. Now, boot diagnostic is what? If you are from the Windows background, you will be having some sort of, on the BIOS level, you will be having some sort of diagnostic issues, or say if the virtual machine is not coming up from say recently something updated on the virtual machine and it's not booting up again. So there is a high chances something goes wrong with your virtual machine. So what you can do, you can always enable this boot diagnostics. With the help of boot diagnostic, you can check what went wrong and you can collect the diagnostic data for the future references for further troubleshooting. Okay. Now the third one is performance diagnosis. Of course, we need to enable it first, guys. It is not enabled, yeah. Now the one more part is here, performance diagnostics. Now, what is the performance diagnostic and why do we use it? Any insight here? Why do we use it? What is your take? Why do we use the performance?
No, no clue, sir.
The reason we use this performance diagnostic is to capture some sort of performance bottleneck. Now, imagine that what is this operating system or why do we deploy the virtual machine and what kind of service is this, right? It is something called your infrastructure as a service, right? When you deploy any virtual machine, which is nothing but part of your infrastructure as a service. And on top of it, if you're deploying any services, say the web servers, or say the application servers, or say the SQL database, or say anything else you installed on top of this, or you host on top of the Windows server. Windows is a kind of base operating system. On top of it, you can install any sort of application which are compatible with the Windows, right? Now, situation might arise when you install some application on this virtual machine. There is a very non conflict in the IT environment, and I believe you must have also experienced the same. What is that? Say, if there is any problem with the virtual machine, say people started complaining, or your users, employees started complaining, stating that the application is quite slow. Okay. Now your application team dig into the investigation and found nothing, and then they throw the ball in support team court, stating that this is problem with the Windows or Linux operating system. So now, even though it is not the Windows problem, but just to distinguish and make it very much clear, what you have to do, you can come and check, enable this performance diagnostic. The moment you enable this performance diagnostic and set the parameter that, okay, what is the CPU utilization, what is the memory utilization, what is the IOS input out, sorry, IOPS, which is input output per second for the application. All of these, you know, logs you can share with your application team and say that, okay, see, boss, this is the application, this is the exe which is pertaining to your application is consuming more CPU. The CPU utilization is more on so and so time, and that is why your application is slow. It is not the Windows application, because when you go and check it out, the overall performance of the Windows, it is it is below the utilization. It is like only 30% of the compute are being used. Okay, so in such scenario, this performance diagnostics plays a critical role. So you have to run it. You can see that why we use this performance diagnostic. Okay, only thing is we have to create some sort of storage account here and see why do we use this. The performance diagnostic tool help you to troubleshoot or performance issues that affect your Windows or Linux virtual machine. Okay, so we do not have to log into the virtual machine in order to run this performance diagnostic tool. We can do it from here. These are the supported operating system and these are the Linux supported operating system. How do you do it? This is the way we have to install it, and we need to attach with our storage account. This is the way. Okay.
Okay.
So for that purpose, we will be using this performance diagnostics. Now there is a one more thing: reset password. So as the name says, reset. You have some username and password, and you forgot the password. You forgot the username. So if you wanted to recall, reconnect, restore the username and password, you can come here and type username and password, confirm the password, and you are in. Now there is another way to reset the configuration. Reset the configuration, it means it is going to reset the overall configuration of your virtual machine. Okay. Moving on to, we have something called redeployment and reapply. Now, why do we use redeployment and reapply? So there is a high chances in the prod environment when something has restarted, some application has restarted on a virtual machine, and so you are not able to connect to the virtual machine. So you might take either to opt for redeployment and or reapply. So for a moment, go through this definition and let me know what is your take to have a distinguence between redeploy and reapply. So what do you understand with this definition? When do we go for redeploy or when we go for reapply?
So, redeploy means the virtual machine will be restarted and will lose any data of temporary drive. Uh,
Hmm. Yeah. So temporary drive means what? Which drive? It's a D drive, right?
Correct.
Yeah. But when you go for reapply, this means there would be a slight fluctuation for accessing the virtual machine if it is already in use.
Oh,
But the data will not, we will not lose the data in reapply. But both the techniques are being used to do a kind of troubleshooting when you're not able to connect to the virtual machine.
okay.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
So now moving on to serial console. Now serial console is a kind of same console that will be using as part of your boot diagnostics. If you recall, probably you come across or not, there's something called ILO. When you're not able to connect to any virtual machine remotely, specifically in a virtual environment, or probably you in your environment also, you have something called on-prem EXSI server. So when you're not able to do anything, then you will be using something called serial console. In that way, you will be connecting to the BIOS of that virtual machine and try to see if there is any misconfiguration occurred recently in 24 hours or any changes were done. Once you fix it, then you should be able to connect. So the same concept applies here as well. Now, finally, we also have something called network security group. Now, what is this network security group? This is to determine any sort of problem with your inbound and outbound. If you have any problem for your virtual machine, whether it is inbound or outbound, you can come and check it out. Now, if I wanted to verify whether the inbound connection from my connection from this is my IP address, from my IP address, whether the destination port is open or not. So if I just click on run, wait for some time.
So means whatever rules we have to configure on the virtual machine means all the rules are showing there, na?
No, no, that rule is NSG rule that we are not talking right now. It is
Okay.
like the connection secure and destination source and destination port we are referring. Of course, you can
Okay.
change it. You can
Okay.
upgrade. Let this test pass or fail, and then we can change this connection source.
Okay.
So this deployment succeeded, and if I run this test again, seems like it has to showcase some sort of result, pass, fail, or something. And this is one of the subset of your network watcher, which we are going to do in a little later. And if there's any problem, something, it will throw error message here. Not sure why it is not showing anything, but ideally it has to showcase what is the problem here. Oh yeah, it's there. It's just like we were not able to see. So I just minimize it. Now, if I go for 60, 70. Can you see that? NSG name, traffic
Yes,
status is allowed.
yes, allowed.
Okay. Now if I change it, now if I say that from the any other IP address, whether the RTP is allowed or not. So if I run the test again by changing the source, but my destination is as it is. It is allowed. It means not only you, not only me, even you should be also able to connect to this virtual machine because 33894 port is worldwide enabled. But if I say whether the port number 80 allowed, or you can make this and run the test. So it's checking the connectivity. No, it is not allowed. Okay, why it is not allowed? Because it is denied by default. Because of this security rule, it is not allowed. And that is the reason if I try to open an IS space here on my personal laptop, I will not be able to see, the public IP. I will not be able to see. I'll not be I'll not be able to see the IS space here. Okay. Why? Because it is denied. So what I need to do in order to make it allow? Do I need to make any changes here?
Yes, go to the in one and create the new one.
Yeah, correct. So we have to go here under the security rule, and under this security rule, I'll be allowing something called port number 80.
80.
Yeah, HTTP. And if I just allow it, it add. So after some time, even that port is allowed, and I should be able to see the IS space from this virtual machine.
Correct.
So now if I refresh, it will take some time to refresh this, and eventually I should be able to see the IS page for this virtual machine. And now if I run this test again, so let's see that what is the outcome. So I need to just minimize this screen. Now it's still denied because this rule has still not replicated properly. We have to wait for some time. Now it is up. So you can see I am able to open IS with public IP. Okay. And if I run this rule again, so probably it should be fine now. There is a visible lag, guys. So whenever you make any changes, allow it to wait for some time before you reaching to any conclusion. Okay. Now we can see that it is allowed. Now there is one more thing here under this operations only. Not operations, sorry, under this one, which is my auto shutdown. Now, what is this auto shutdown policy is all about? Auto shutdown, if you recall, we have some options in a virtual machine under this operations where we can shut down our virtual machine by so and so time. Okay, so if you enable this shutdown, it will ask you to schedule your shutdown timing and a time zone. And of course, you can also set a notification before auto shutdown. Okay, so if you enable this and click on yes, so here you will be giving an email address, that on this email address you will be getting notification. If not, and if you not configure, then you will not be able to save anything. If you click off, then it will be disabled by default. Now, at the same time, we also have something called, you know, this backup, disaster recovery, updates. So this part we will be covering as part of backup and restoration module. And moreover, some sort of policies that are there in this virtual machine. For instance, under this policy, we have a plenty of policy. We talk about uh, what kind of policies and control that we have it. So this control, the control mechanism what we have here in terms of policy. Suppose you wanted to create some sort of policy in the Azure environment that okay, anyone should not be able to connect to internet. Okay, so you will be defining this policy and applying it across all the virtual machines in your subscription. So from top to down, this application or this policy will flow. So that for that purpose, we will be using these policies. And of course, as we move along, we will be talking about monitoring. Under that, we will be talking about alert mechanism, metrics, diagnostic log, connection, and so on and so forth. But not now. So these are the virtual machine properties here. One more thing about the size here, sizing of the virtual machine. What does it mean here? We have not spoken about the size, what all the size we have it, but tomorrow in tomorrow's class we will be talking about, and tomorrow only we will be deploying some Linux virtual machine as well, just to concrete the concept of this virtual machine section. Okay. Now, what happens here? Right now, you have the set of virtual machines sizing. Now, when we talk about size, virtual machine comes in a different size depending on the workload you are going to host on your virtual machine. You can choose one of the size or the configuration of the virtual machine. When we talk about configuration, it means what kind of and how much amount of RAM, the CPU, and actual the CPU, memory, overall the compute, how you're going to choose, how you're going to determine, all of the things will come here. So if you see that these, we have a different size uh, are available for the VMs. You have general purpose from DS series, DS2 series, and then you have a general purpose for BM2, and then we have B series. It is for what purpose? It is ideal for the workload that do not continuously need the CPU performance. And then you also have something called E series, a third generation E family size for high memory needs and so on. So E series, D series, L series, all of series are available. So if you wanted to resize, suppose initially when you deploy this virtual machine, you were not pretty much ensured that okay, or this virtual machine is going to suffice my requirement. Or probably as you are learning, you are just novice administrator, and in the beginning, you have chosen the high compute virtual machine. When you go and do a little research and found your virtual machine is underutilization. It means only 30 to 40% of your virtual machines are being used. The compute of your virtual machine is not going beyond 30%, 40%, or once in a while in 50%. So what does it mean? Your virtual machine is underutilized. It means it is not being optimized correctly. So what you can do, you can always come and resize it. You can also utilize something called advisor, Azure Advisor. So when you use this Azure Advisor, there also you will get a recommendation about your compute, whether this compute or the virtual machine is properly optimized or not. All right. So this for this purpose, you will be using this sizing part. You also have something called admin center. Here, the admin center is same how you have in your virtual machine under your administrator, right? Administrative tools are there. So from here also you will be able to manage your virtual machine remotely. You do not have to log in to the virtual machine the moment you configure the Windows Admin Center. For instance, to explore the server manager, you can very well do it from here. Okay. Now there is a one more thing, Microsoft Defender for Cloud. So since I have already enabled this on the server, there is something called security features which we talk about later. I'm giving you one heads up here just in time. So just in time, I think we spoke about this concept last in the last class also. So what does it mean and how do we enable it? When you enable this just in time feature, it means you're going to secure your virtual environment, the virtual machine environment. See, why do we use this? For example, if I am the full-time administrator and if I have a permission on this virtual machine, a full permission, so I can do whatever I want. But in actual, when you are the administrator trying to do anything on the virtual machine, so throughout 8 hours to 10 hours, you don't need this admin privileges every time, right? Probably in a day, you might be doing some administrative related work twice in a or two times in a day, or say the overall calculation of the time is almost 2 hours. So why you should be having access on your virtual machine 24 by 7? So the concept works here just in time is as long as you're going to perform some administrative works till the time you will be having access on this specific virtual machine. The moment you are done and dusted with your activities, you will be thrown out from the virtual machine and you will become a normal user. So what is the advantage here? Though if I am the admin, and if my password got compromised somewhere, even though I should not be able to log in to my virtual machine, okay, because of this kind of restrictions. At the same time, we also have something, a workflow management that we can associate with this concept. What is the advantage having this? The advantage of attaching just in time workflow is, suppose I have chosen a two administrator or my superior or my director to let them know or let them approve it. As long as they or the moment they approved it, their logs will be generated in the portal, and I as a user should be able to log in and see that what all the activities I have performed. And all these activities will be captured in the logs. Along with that, who approved me to log in? The custodian, the approver will also get notification and their activities will also logged in. So tomorrow, if something goes wrong with your virtual machine, you will be having complete flow of the data, how and who approved it, what all the activities are being performed by so and so guy. So it will help you to narrow down the troubleshooting steps or narrow down the cyber attack which might happen because of this. So we will be enabling just in time feature, not now, but when we are going to talk about the virtual machine security, during that time we will be exploring this part. Okay, and here is the something called advisor recommendation, where you can always come and as we discussed in the previous class, we can always come and rerun this advisor and see what kind of recommendation this is giving to us. In term, if you recall, advisor has 4 and 5 pillars: operations, security, excellence, and the cost, right? So all of these recommendation the advisor will provide, and we as a consumer, we as an administrator, we can take appropriate action depending on the recommendation advisor provides to us. Then we also have something called availability and scaling. So this availability and scaling, we will be talking about fault domain, updated domain, availability set in our network segment, because this network, under the network segment, again, we have to talk about this when we are going to deploy the load balancer. So we will be combining these two topics together to have the complete practical demonstration. Then we also have something called continuous delivery. Now, this continuous delivery is nothing but you wanted to integrate your Azure VM with DevOps. Okay. Then, if you wanted to leverage the DevOps functionalities, features, then you should be able to attach the this part and should be able to fulfill your requirement. Any questions so far?
No.
Okay. One more thing, how do you control your access? So this is also part of your security management, where you will be defining that who will be able to access my virtual machine. For instance, if this virtual machine is there and this is my virtual machine and I have a few users, so if this is my web server, assume that this is my Windows web server, and I'm sitting in US headquarter. Okay, so this user has full administrative rights. Okay, and this user is kind of junior administrator, and he is sitting somewhere in the US headquarters. And this is somewhere in your Singapore location. So this is a kind of experienced guy, and this is he just joined your company, and both of them have are part of the same team. Okay, so being a senior guy, he will be having full access. But if you replicate or delegate the same set of permission, and he's just new to this environment, so what happens? Anything goes wrong. If he done something, so probably everything will go for the toss. So what you can do, you can customize, restrict the access. Of course, he has to have some sort of access, but do not grant the full access. Rather, give only the minimum access which he needed to perform all of his tasks. Do not give any deletion access. Do not give the full permissions. Do not give the right permission. Okay. To segregate this, we have something called identity access management, which is nothing but your IAM. Okay. Now, under that, you will be checking your first access. What is the full access? I have a full access. If you wanted to grant access to someone else, so you will be adding here, add role assignment, and under that, what kind of role? Okay, here we have a plenty of role. These roles are predefined. Okay, now depending on what kind of permission you wanted to grant, For instance, if I just wanted to grant the read-only permission, nothing else, I hit on read-only permission here. Click next, and then add the member. Right now, I do not have any users, but I can always select here members from here and add this, and then click next, review and assign. So this way, I would be granting some permission to this virtual machine. Okay, this is one way of accomplishing and securing your virtual machine. Like that, we have a plenty of roles, as I told you. You can select whichever is needed and fulfilling your requirement. Okay, so this is what all about IAM and the control mechanism for this. Now, there's something called diagnose and solve problem. This is a kind of automated, uh, you know, steps that we have to follow. If this is the case, what you have done it. Now, this is the problem, what you have done it. Something like that. Okay, so you can verify what is the problem. If performance issues, let's go and dig into performance problem. If VM is, unexpectedly restarting, you can troubleshoot altogether. You can say that, okay, what is the problem related to that? Help diagnose to my restart, RCA for this, my resource has been stopped. So this all you can see that, okay, where all you have to do something, common issues and solution, relevant result from the web. All of this information will be given on a single click here. Okay. You can select the Windows Update guest patching or the OS upgradation, troubleshooting deployment failure, your guidance, VM is not booting up. So you can see the plenty of a built-in template where you can go and check it out and avail this KB article in form of AI. Okay, so these are the couple of things which we discuss. Now, when we meet tomorrow, we will be exploring to deploy the Linux virtual machine and installing some sort of application on the Linux server. Finally, we'll talk about the VM series and the VM size. And eventually, we will also know what are the various options to secure our virtual machine.
Okay, sir.
All right. So one
Okay.
more thing before we conclude.